All right. I think we're back. Oh, that was a mess. Super messy. Okay, cool. Whew. Tonight has been a night for technical difficulties. Here's hoping nothing else goes wrong with the tech. Y'all know how this works, though. Wow, this music is a little more epic than I signed up for as well. How is the background music volume for y'all compared to my voice in particular? Seems like it might be able to go a little quieter, yeah? Cool. What is up, Will? It does feel like we're in a montage. I'm gonna need to go back to this song. I should probably take note of what this song is when I want to get into montage mode. I'm gonna like it for the future. Ryan, Chris, Prince, Will, it's good to have y'all here. And some other folks still lurking. So if you're here, if you're hanging out, say hello. I know who Philly Newshound is. That's Seth, isn't it? Figure we'll hang out, say hello, introduce ourselves in the chat. Yo, what's up, Zorn? Want to get to know who is here, who's hanging out, and then I will introduce you to what I'm working on tonight and talk a little bit about how that's going to go. Since the last time was super fun, way more fun than I thought it was going to be. Will, no, it's not from an 80s movie soundtrack. This is one of Harris Heller, who's a pretty popular Twitch streamer. This is part of a bunch of copyright-free streaming music. This is a playlist that I haven't listened to before. It is called, what is it called? I think this one's called Lone Wolf. That's pretty hilarious. But it's pretty epic. Some of the other stuff is like a little too mellow, and so I figured I'd pick one of the like sets of music that's a little more upbeat. Because it is 8:30 p.m. Eastern on a Sunday, so a little bit of upbeat feels like what I need. A couple other things that I've got in here that are new. You might notice there's some new purple back here. I'm doing the lighting thing, which is pretty dope. Unfortunately, the Wi-Fi part of that lets me like change it from my phone or my computer doesn't work, so they gotta send me a new one. That part's not fun. Well, cool. We've got some folks here. We got some new folks here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. A couple weeks ago, I guess like a little over a week ago, I kind of on a lark had a little writing project to finish up. The Tiny MBA book club was in demand, but I didn't really have a place to send people that wanted it, and I had to sort of think through what we were even going to offer, what we needed, and by the end of a session that was like a couple hours long, with the help of some folks that were here, we banged out a pretty badass page that I cleaned up a few days later, finished up the resources. Actually, why don't I start by showing you how that ended up. I'm gonna switch over to my screen share mode. Ooh, fancy, right? Let's see here. Tiny MBA Book Club takes you to this page, which I'd say is like still got some work to do, but here's the game plan. And like I said, last time we worked on this, I got help from folks in the chat, which was super helpful. We ended up breaking it down into 3 packages. There is a free package that anybody who runs a business book club, a mastermind, a meetup, a co-working group, whatever it is, I put together this little set of, I don't know how you want to call it. It's a cheat sheet. Well, I started calling it a cheat sheet, and I was like, that's not the right thing here. We're calling it the Tiny Book Club Playbook. And I have the PDF, which I can show you here too. That ended up coming out pretty cool. So what's in there when folks actually sign up for that, a couple of tips for folks that are new to running book clubs or want to do something that's more than just 1 or 2 friends. couple of tips, using a thing for RSVPing, using every time zone if you are across time zones, some just handy tools that I find for organizing people online. And then the big one is like setting clear expectations about reading deadlines. Thankfully with the Tiny MBA, you can, read the whole thing in like 30 minutes. But there's that. But then the real thing, the most valuable thing that I really wanted to give folks was this recommended discussion prompts. And I workshopped some of these on my own, got some feedback from some 30 by 500 students, from party corgis, from some other friends, and this is what I landed on. So this is what anybody can sign up for and get for free if they wanted to do their own book club, book discussion sort of thing. And then I've got two other packages. The first one is a discount. If you've got a group of 5 or more, you fill out a little form that is actually hooked up. It works. I've got several people that have applied and have been sent their coupon code. And really the only difference between each one is how much of a discount you get based on how many people you have. Not really, monitoring that. It's on our system. We just want more people to read the book together. That's the real goal. And then the last piece is the Tiny Book Club Live, which I'm pretty stoked about. We've got 3 folks signed up for that, and where we left things last time, there was sort of a big question mark on like, how do we price this? And that was like one of the things that was left on my to-do list besides the actual, making the playbook, finishing up these forms and all that stuff, was what do we charge for this? And I decided that for the first few, I'm going to do them for free because it's just really nice to have a feedback loop. And I'm going to use it as sort of a pilot to get a sense of how this works. And so I might do it for another 2 or 3 groups besides the ones that have signed up and do it for free, get a sense of how that works. And then probably going to do something in the, so again, starting in the $250 range to book a live Q&A. Once I get a really clear picture of what it is that I can deliver in a Q&A that is unique, that is valuable. But I'm probably going to make that pricing something that is sliding scale of some kind. So we talked about, if it's a business or a corporation, obviously charging them $250 doesn't make as much sense as, a professional group that can split $250 10 ways or something along those lines. I don't have a problem with people charging for tickets to the Q&A or passing it along to their group in some way. But I figured the real thing was to get a few of these out and maybe even have some like group photos or snippets of the recording that I can put into the marketing. Because like right now it's, I'm not famous enough to command tons of money for a Q&A, but I do want to have a price tag on it at some point. So that's what we wrapped up last time. I did a little bit more. I put a couple of my favorite testimonials down at the bottom. And this is starting to get shared around, which is cool. And I'm excited to see where this goes. If nothing else, when folks reach out, I now have a landing page to send them to. And I'm thinking I might start like sharing out some of the snippets. I might actually try doing like, with the playbook, we've got the prompts and the questions. I might try and do stuff with just one of those prompts, and we can do that at Indie Hall and in Party Corgi and on Twitter and things like that. So I've got some room to play, and that's how I like to be. I like to have some really good resources that when I want to just like jump into things and see how it goes, that it's kind of ready to go. So that's last time. We're not working on that last time. This time, that was kind of a sales page, even though it was like not super hardcore pain dream fix, not super hardcore persuasion, because it's for people who already know about the book and just want to do more. I didn't have to really work for it. This one's also a little bit different. I was thinking I've got 2 things that I could work on, and I'm super open to either. So chat, this is going to be a chance for you to drive which we do first. And depending on how quickly it goes and how much energy I have, we might do both. So I've got 2 options. One is an article refresh, and I've got that up here on the screen. This is from a rather old article, an article that I wrote for Lifehacker. I mean, I wrote it for my site, and then Lifehacker picked it up and asked to syndicate it. So it wasn't like Lifehacker's like, hey, write us an article. But I'd written this, and they were like, hey, this is perfect for us. So I wrote this, and you can see, wow, I didn't even notice the date. I knew it was 2012, but it is almost to the day, right? September 11th, 2012, and that was just on Friday. So this article is one of my favorites. I reference it a lot, especially when people are coming to me with questions about, I've got lots of ideas, or how do you keep your ideas organized, or how do you figure out which ideas are good ideas? And you can see what the problem is with this page right now. The page is unresponsive because this page has really, really bad ad cancer, as I like to call it. It's like unreadable. It's so bad. So I'm not even going to keep scrolling on it because it's just going to crash Chrome. But I was like, I want to keep sending people this link, but I didn't even realize I was sending them such a broken page. And then I did look at the content and I was like, this is still really good, but we can make it better, right? When I'm talking about this article, I realized I've filled in a lot of gaps based on conversation. So option number one is taking the contents of that article, which I've already placed in here, and done some of the basic layout, but this needs updating. This needs way more detail. I did add a screenshot already. I didn't do really much more than some basic formatting here. This definitely needs what I call an evergreen edit. So a little bit of context on that. When I really started doing this in earnest in about early 2019, where I started going through our old content and looking for, especially stuff that Amy had written. Like my stuff was some portion of this website, but Amy had written so much more stuff on this website than I had. And when I was adding it to our evergreen newsletter, I realized that a lot of times there was references to dates and events and things that didn't make sense anymore. And I realized that if I go through this with a certain lens, I can update the article, keep the article intact, obviously, remove stuff that doesn't make sense because it's time-based in some way, or because it has, as soon as it references something that is highly likely to change, there's a risk that I'm going to have to update it again in the future. So I kind of got good at looking for those things and either removing them or rewriting them so that they made more sense. Ad cancer. Thomas said it was called an adcess, like an abscess, but I was like, oh, that's just gross. So we're gonna stick with ad cancer. So there's some stuff in here that is referencing a certain period of time or when something happened. I know that just from my preliminary read through. We've got to do that, and then I want to flesh this out a little bit. The style and tone feels really flat to me compared to what I've learned how to do over the last 8 years. And so I've spent a lot of time making Amy's writing better. I've spent some time making my own writing better. So there's a chance to make this writing better. So we can use this as an example of going back to your old writing and how I would systematically approach improving it, what I would actually do to rewrite. So that's option number one. Option number two is a little different. This is creating something new that is also already partially created. So I actually wrote this morning, 8 hours ago, you can see. So I guess I should say earlier this afternoon. As a reply to a comment over on Indie Hackers. This is not a super random comment because, as you can see, this is somebody asking about Sales Safari. For anyone who's here who doesn't know what Sales Safari is, first of all, hello. Welcome to the stream, and I would love for you to shout out in the chat and say who you are and where you're from and how you found your way here. Big part of my goal with this stream is to meet people and hang out, not just talk at you. So if you are new here, if you're just tuning in, give us a shout in the chat. I want to have folks get to know each other a little bit, and I want to get to know you. So Sales Safari is this research methodology that Amy invented. We've sort of perfected over the years and is sort of at the core of everything that we teach. And somebody asked, does this work for developer audiences? Which, if you know this world of Sales Safari and 30 by 500, of course it is. It was in many ways designed for them. So she asked that. I didn't have to answer that. There's a bunch of people, including, maybe best, Cortland Allen, founder of Indie Hackers, jumping in and saying, yep, it works. But he did more than just it works. He helped her challenge her assumptions about why it might not work, which is way more important than whether or not Sales Safari works. It's all about that worldview and understanding. Zorn, let's be honest. Zorn and I are Indie Hall neighbors when Indie Hall is in real life. We do need Indie Hall emotes in here. I don't actually know how to do that in Twitch yet. But Zorn, you're not famous because we share pod at Indie Hall. You're famous from everything. You're famous on the internet. But it's good to see you here, man. So, this question was, does Sales Safari work on an audience of developers? Cortland had an awesome response. A bunch of other stuff down here as well, from some folks who have taken our Sales Safari 101 course, people who have done their own versions of it, people who have pieced together fragments of what we've shared on the internet over time. I jumped in, kind of late, maybe late in the day after it was posted, and said, I can answer any other specifics. I also pointed out that many of our students are developers making things for developers, which was one of her core assumptions, is like, can you really do that? And I pointed out the wide range of things, and I think part of the reason why people get hung up on this is because they assume that if I'm a developer making things for developers, that it needs to be a certain thing, right? Software, developer tools, things like that. And I pointed out that, we've got students that have created all kinds of things, everything from, software, of course, but also like templates and kits. And I know somebody who sells like a security oriented Docker template. And then, Joel Hooks from Egghead, who, a bunch of you know as well, like that's education, but it's not just making, screencasts. It's an entire business built around education and teaching teachers as well. And so lots of really interesting things that can be done when you're a developer creating things for other developers. But the thing that I said in here that caught her eye was the line where I said, part of the challenge here is you're only going to think of products and ideas based on what you've seen most recently. What you really need is a repeatable process for turning problems into potential products and then narrowing them down to the best choices. And so she latched onto that and she goes, that does sound like what I want. How does that work? Now, here's where things get interesting and tricky. The best answer to that is actually several videos in 30x500. It's like one of the biggest units. We spent the most time building that when we were building the new 30x500 a few years ago. And it's a process we call fixed storming. That's part of a big course, which means it is behind a paywall, but also more importantly, taking it entirely out of context is challenging too. So I thought about linking to a video and just like giving a video away for free, and I realized that would maybe help, but it would also raise enough other kinds of questions. So I decided to answer it in writing, also making it clear that this is more than I can, like the most complete answer is not something I can describe in a comment. And it's also not something that I can really describe without all the full context. But I did write down a pretty thorough description, not just of what fixed storming is, but the specific problem that fixed storming solves, right? And so I said, one of the challenges of coming up with product ideas is we're only using our free form, and I'm already seeing typos in here. Comments, typos, they're allowed. But I also point out the fact that there's bias, right? So the availability bias specifically were, Indie Hackers as an example, and I talk about that down, I think, lower in the comment here is like, or it's somewhere. Oh, where is it? Maybe somebody else can see it faster than my brain can. At any rate, the notion here being that like on Indie Hackers, product types seem to show up in waves, right? And so like one week it'll be all software, and the next week it'll be all, Chrome extensions, and the next week it'll be all paid newsletters. And that availability bias does funny things with our heads and makes us think, oh, that's the thing that I should make. And there's no real evidence for that, right? Unless it's coming from your Sales Safari research, not from just like whatever trend is happening this week, right? So it's not TikTok trends, it's business, right? So you need trends that last long enough, and that availability bias doesn't screw up. So anyway, I wrote this pretty thorough comment earlier today. It's the weekend. I don't expect her to necessarily reply, but I feel really good about this comment. And one of my favorite things to do, well, so two things. One is the way I justify the effort that goes into a comment of this scale and effort and quality, is I go in with the expectation that if I'm happy with this at the end, this will give me the foundation of a new blog post, right? Because this is not the first person who's asked about solving this problem of like, how do we come up with product concepts that people will actually buy, right? And there's way more parts to that answer, but this is a good answer to one of the parts of that answer that we don't have written down anywhere. So I was like, ooh, opportunity to write it down. And it's always so much easier to write an answer to a specific person in a specific context and then take that and mold it and shape it into something that can be evergreen. So that's kind of option number 2 here, is I can take this comment, literally copy it out of here, and what I'm thinking I'm going to do is, rather than put it into a blog post, I actually think that because this is a really useful lesson, that it actually would go really well in a 30 by 500 launch email. And the reason I think that is because when we're doing launch emails, there are some emails that we send, say, you know, the doors are open and here's everything that's inside, but we try to make the vast majority of the emails, even the testimonial emails, we really try hard to make educational, right? So my goal when we're launching a product and sending marketing emails is to, even if it's about the product, even if that is the centerpiece, the majority of the time, like definitely over half, I'm shooting for 70 or 80% of the time, I want every email to be valuable, even if they don't buy. I want every email to be valuable, even if they don't click on it, right? Because that's how you maintain the trust that you've built, by having somebody's email address. So given that this is a problem that is extraordinarily likely that somebody who's already paying attention to the 30 by 500 launch, right, which this open enrollment starts on Tuesday, so timing is good here, right? I've got most of the launch built out. I've got a few things to finish up. We're reusing stuff that's worked well in the past, but I realized, oh, my camera froze. That is a problem that I've been having, and I'm not sure why. So if anybody has ideas for that, I would love to hear them. Let's see here. Oh, I froze on a hilarious face too, didn't I? Cool. You've had that issue in the past with specific USB ports. Okay. I have multiple things I have to check with that then. Because I now have my computer's USB port, and now I also have stuff running through a switch. Cool. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. And I will have to test other USB ports. What a pain in the butt that is. But I'm glad to hear it's not just me. That is actually kind of reassuring. So where was I? 30 by 500 launch emails we want to make really, really useful. And my thought was really like, on Tuesday, so on Monday, tomorrow, an email goes out that lets people know sort of the fundamentals. We answer 4 core questions about the format, what to expect, the pricing, things like that. We added a 5th question about our new parity purchasing power pricing options. That's a mouthful to say, as well as our scholarship for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. If you didn't see that, that's now up on stackingthebricks.com. You can go check that out. Super, super excited about all of that. So that email that's sort of like 30 by 500 launches tomorrow. If you have one of these 4 questions, we've got an answer here for you, but doors open tomorrow. If you're planning to join, that's you can do that tomorrow. That email goes out and it is really short. It's basically like, here's your link, see you inside. But what I'll probably do is take Wednesday off, give people a break, because we've been sending emails almost every day. Wednesday will be no email. Thursday, I want to come back with like, another right hook here. Instead of here's another marketing email, I want to talk about, if I'm going to talk about the course, I want to give something really, really valuable. So given how common this question comes up, maybe not in these explicit terms, but it does come up. You know, people are at least thinking about this question, is like, you know, even once I know what the problem is, how do I figure out what the idea is? How do I figure out how to fix it? You know, how do I turn that into software? And so my thought process right now is, let's see here. We're going to sequences. I already just did a little bit of work on this. It's this one. So you're getting a little bit of peek behind the curtain on a 30 by 500 launch as well. This email went out on Thursday. And this is an email that we have sent before, but is super, super well received. And again, it's very advice-centric. It is kind of mindset framing. On Friday, I sent the email that was all about the scholarships and parity purchasing power. That was a little bit different, but that was also extremely well received. Today, so I took Saturday off. Sunday, I sent out another educational email. This is sort of a hybrid educational case study email that went out. And then this is the frequently asked questions that I mentioned. This goes out tomorrow, Monday. Tuesday is when the enrollment link goes out. And I'm thinking Thursday is when I'm gonna take this Indie Hackers comment and turn it into something. It's not done yet. That's what we're gonna do together. But I copy pasted it in. And my thought process was to sort of frame it as a question that we do get often. So it is about 30 by 500, which is fine because it's in the mode of that. But it answers a question a lot of people have, because in the back of their mind, they're like, I see people launching info products. I wanna launch a SaaS. Is this for me? Or I don't have technical skills. Do I have to launch a SaaS? Is this for me? Both of those kinds of people come to 30 by 500 and are often kind of lost and distracted, and my video froze again. Fucking hell. That's super, super, super annoying. Super, super, super annoying. Sky Forest, yes. 30 by 500 doesn't launch tomorrow, but it launches this week. So the next enrollment starts this week. It will be open from Tuesday until roughly Tuesday. We might extend it to Wednesday. But that is the next enrollment. We will do one more before the end of this year, it looks like. Our entire launch schedule has been pretty wacky this year because of everything going on. And what is up, Nick? Glad you stopped by. Another late night internet party. Cool. So, here's what I'm thinking. I might, for the sake of not having to think about my camera freezing again and dealing with that problem later, I might turn my camera off. I'll wait till it freezes again. If it freezes again, I'm just going to turn the camera off and we'll focus on what's going on the screen. But while I've got you here, there are 14 of you here, which is super, super cool. Do you have a preference? Would you like to see me work on turning the Indie Hacker comment into a launch email? Or would you like to see me clean up the Spark file article from Lifehacker for the blog? Any preference? Preference at all? And while you're doing that, I am going to tweet about this. Okay. Both are cool. Plans for the comment. You know what? Here's the deal. I'm gonna make the call. Unless somebody really wants to see the Lifehacker thing, we're gonna go with the Indie Hackers comment to the new article. New thing. None of it's really new because I already wrote it, but I get you. I follow. All right, so this is what we're gonna do. Sure enough, my video froze again on a really, really funny face. It always does that, doesn't it? I'll turn that guy off, and we're just gonna deal with that. It's a bummer, but we'll deal with it. All right, so new thing. Y'all can see my screen, ready to go. So like I said, I've already got this copied out, and the other thing that I already did, like I said, the is 3500 aimed at building any particular type of business. That quote actually came directly from an email that I got from someone who already signed up for 38500, and then once they were inside, they had a moment of doubt. They actually had several moments of doubt, but that was one of them. They were wondering if we were going to force them into a particular product format, which we do not. We encourage tiny products, which usually means discouraging software as a service as your very first product. Not forever, but just for your first thing, because there's so many moving parts. SaaS is awesome, but also, like, if you're choosing difficulty levels, it is like playing on Daddy Don't Hurt Me mode from Wolfenstein. So we encourage people to, play on easy mode while you're learning, which if you're in this class, you were here to learn. And I thought this question might be a good way to frame it. So I might come back and rewrite that. We'll see. You might remember from last time that when I'm writing titles, sometimes I write the title first and then I go and I come back and tweak it a little bit. Sometimes I end up pulling the title out of the body. So, all right. Let's get into this. There's some weird formatting nonsense. Blah. So, before I do anything, just because I haven't looked at this in 8 hours, I'm just going to read through it. And for the sake of trying something new, I'm going to try and read it out loud. So one of the challenges of coming up with product ideas is that if we're only using our freeform, fix a typo with a typo, our freeform imaginations, we're only going to come up with products that are like the ones we've seen. Worse, we're going to bias towards products that we think are the coolest, most exciting, or fun to create, and even that we see most often or recently. That's why product ideas seem to come in waves through communities like Indie Hackers, Product Hunt, and Hacker News, right? So I'm just gonna, as I see opportunities to like flesh something out, because remember that comment that I wrote was basically one take. So not a lot of editing went into that. So now is where I go through and go, okay, I can say that a little more specifically, or a little, there's other details. The other thing is when I wrote that first piece, the first comment, I knew who I was writing it to, and I had the context of where it was and things like that. But now it's going to go into an email where I don't have all that context, so I need to provide it in some other way. And context is, again, all about trust. It's about making the reader go, oh, you're talking to me, right? Oh, you understand me. So that's the very first, besides like typos and structural things, that's the main thing that I'm looking for in our very first pass. But whether it's SaaS, ebooks, do you guys capitalize ebooks or not? That's something that I always struggle with. In this context, I think that should be lowercase. Paid newsletters, the more you see it. Ebooks, lowercase for you, Zorn. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. The more you see it, the more likely it's going to be the first thing comes on your mind when you're brainstorming. Availability bias is very, very strong. That's like a pretty killer opening. So I'm just going to like give myself a little space and just focus on what does this opening necessarily need to really get the attention of a reader and make it so that they're confident that this email was really written for them. And by the way, if anybody has any questions about anything you see on the page or anything that I'm talking through or thinking through, please feel free to ask. Like I said, I want to make this a dialogue. I'm here to chat with all of you and answer questions. And if you have ideas or you go, if if I was writing it, I would say, I'd maybe say something like this. I'm not necessarily going to do everything you say. They're not my puppet masters, but a bunch of the stuff that ended up in the book club page came from stuff from the chat, so I welcome it. So let me think about this for a minute. So we can frame this in one of two ways. We can do a challenge or a mistake. And challenges are interesting because some people like, well, it doesn't feel hard to me, but it doesn't. You don't know if it's a mistake until it's too late. So I'm gonna lean on mistakes here. Nick, Facecam, I think it's either a USB port or USB cable or something, but my camera keeps freezing. So I'm gonna Chris Biscardi mentioned that he gets it on certain USB ports. I'm going to try other USB ports. I just didn't want to stop. I already lost 20 minutes screwing with AV stuff before we got started streaming. So cam off for now. We'll see about later. Maybe I'll come back. So one of the most fundamental mistakes that happens while coming up with product ideas that people will actually pay for. There are a bunch of mistakes that often happen while coming up with product while trying to come up with product ideas that you think people will actually pay for. Feel pretty good about that. Oh yeah, we can definitely zoom in a bit, Zorn. Let me figure out the best way to do that. That should be a lot better, right? Excellent. All right, so I did a little bit of rearranging here, and the way I was doing that might not have been obvious, so I'm going to try and describe what I was thinking about. I was thinking about the problems and the mistakes as sort of a series, a chain of events, and more importantly, I'm thinking about the ones that are most visceral, earliest on, or which are the ones that people know they're experiencing. Because if I can really hook people with more than one really good concrete description of something that they've experienced, then I can follow up with things that they haven't experienced or an explanation of why they're experiencing it, and it's that much stronger. So it's sort of use the earlier in a section of writing, I want to focus on connecting, and the deeper I connect, the more I can get away with afterwards. When I say get away with, I mean I can I've earned their trust, so they're willing to listen to continue reading things that aren't explicitly about them, maybe point out mistakes or missteps or challenges or problems, or even offer specific advice, things like that. So now that I don't like opening up with something like there are a number, so I'm probably going to come back and edit that, but I'll punch that up a little bit later. Number of fundamental mistakes that often happen while trying to... In fact, this whole thing needs some like movie scriptiness, so I'll probably describe a lot of these problems in another edit. But so we start with there are mistakes when coming up with products that people will actually pay for. Starting with brainstorming, step in the right direction, as long as you're using customer research. You are using customer research, right? And someone who's getting this email has heard that refrain from us at least once before, so I'm reinforcing things that they already have heard. Now it's like, okay, but I'm on the right path. Where can I go off the path? You can go off the path when you're using your imagination exclusively, because of a thing called the availability bias. That's why product ideas come, and this is like another callback to things that are familiar to them, right? We know that there are people that don't know what Indie Hackers Product Hunter Hacker News are in our audience. The ones who do, they'll be like, oh, I get that. Excuse me, I'm gonna sneeze. That's rare, I never sneeze only once. So 2 more on the way. But yeah, so we're calling out places that they know. Thanks, Nick. Calling out places they know that are familiar to them, and then, catch all for basically everybody else. Whether it's SaaS, ebooks, video courses, or paid newsletters, again, these are observations. These are things that I see. I see people asking about, and so, obviously there's other product formats, but it's a good place to start. And then this last piece, right? I moved this last. This was up much higher, you notice that. But the reason I moved this last is because this feels a little like a slap on the wrist, right? And I know I'm doing that. It's because I know our audience, and for the folks who are gonna resonate, and folks who resonate with their stuff the most anyway, they're not coming to get beat up, but they also are coming to get some tough love. And so the subtle nod here is that, we are an audience of people who love the coolest, most exciting or fun to create, or again, availability bias, blah, blah, blah. So again, this is not final, not even close, but structurally, I've now moved some things around. When I was writing it in the comment, it was pretty linear. Again, I didn't go moving any things around, but now I'm looking at it going, the certain part that belongs later on. I kind of got to earn that. Another thing that needs to come earlier, we need to introduce the availability bias sooner. And in fact, now that I'm saying that out loud, I think availability bias needs to be introduced even sooner, and I might open up with that. Again, our audience is folks who like science and brain stuff, and so if I can introduce a bias and help them understand that bias as a tool for understanding their own work, that's a lesson in and of itself. So it's not an email about the availability bias, but I think that's the arc, right? I want to open with there's a bias among us. There's always biases among us. Actually, while I'm talking about biases, I want to plug a book. Ooh, I can do this. Where is it? I am back. Oh, and I can't. I got a way to show you the book, and my camera's off. Hang on a second. So there's a book. There's a book that my friend David Dylan Thomas recently published through A Book Apart, which is a fantastic independent publisher that you might be familiar with. And it is called Design for Cognitive Bias. I'm getting my video going again, so hopefully I can show you this book because it is the coolest. All right, I think my video is back. This book, I've been flashing my book a whole lot. It's nice to flash somebody else's. This book is fantastic, and it's all about brain stuff, as Luke is repeating. So I've got bias on the brain for sure. Oh, I just noticed that I'm blurbed in the inside cover of this book. That's freaking awesome. Brain stuff as a service. It feels like our work sometimes. So the arc of this opening is there's a bias among us, and it's lurking, and it's causing you all kinds of trouble, and you don't even realize it. And then I earn the ability to say, in addition to the bias of availability, you also have a bias towards things that are cool and interesting or exciting or fun to create and stuff like that. And that's a little more personal than a bias that is out there but affecting us, right? So I kind of got to earn that. So that's where I'm headed in this opening section. I'm going to come back to that. So that sets up the problem. Now we talk about the solution. So the fix as such is something we call fix storming. Capital F because it is a proper noun. This is a name of a specific process that we have invented. It is a complement to pain storming, which is one of the foundation skills and processes in Sales Safari, and today we teach it. This is all going to need a lot of cleanup. Fix storming basically says brainstorming is random and laden with bias. That's not inherently bad, but it is limiting, and more importantly, it sends you into your brain instead of into the research. I'm super proud of that line. It might be because I think it's clever, but I think this half of a sentence, it sends you into your brain instead of into the research, is such a fundamental light bulb moment for like why 30 by 500 works at all. And the difference between success and failure in business is the more time you're spending in other people's heads instead of your own, the better things are gonna go, right? So that's also, I think, part of why this writing process, doing this out loud is good, because I'm getting what's in my head out and talking with all of you. It does have a copywriting rhythm to it, which makes me feel good. So this is definitely gonna stay. At a high level, fix storming looks like this. You pick a very specific pain that you found in your audience experiences via the pain storming and Sales Safari process. You reverse that pain into a dream, also known as the opposite of the pain. What does life look like for your customer once the pain is gone or significantly reduced? Sometimes this is easy and obvious, but many times it requires getting more clear about the problem or why the problem is a problem in the first place. This thing is like super under-communicated, I think, and I would say maybe underappreciated, because a lot of times folks, you look at a sales page and you're like, that sounds good, and then you think about, what does that actually, like, yeah, that hurts, but why does that hurting matter? And I'm trying to come up with an example off the top of my head, but like, right now my like latent anxiety about my camera flickering out, the pain could be like, a reliable, or I should say the dream should be a reliable camera source in my OBS, right? But the dream is not that my camera is reliable. My dream is that I can stay entirely focused on you and chatting with you and not having to worry about periodically glancing at the camera to see if it's frozen, right? The reason that dream is desirable, or the reason that pain is a problem, often doesn't show up in our first draft. It often doesn't show up unless we ask those questions. So part of the fix storming process is to interrogate that, get a couple layers deeper, and get really clear and specific, because sometimes the customer doesn't even know, right? And one of my favorite things to say is, if you can communicate the problem to the customer better than the customer can communicate it to themselves, you've got them on the hook, because they're like, oh, you totally I knew this was a problem, but you understand the problem even better than I understood the problem. Like that's again, there's no cheats to trust or a sale, but like that move is a power move. So, finally, systematically explore the ways to get the customer from the pain to the dream. Systematically is key because you need to think beyond the stuff that comes to your mind naturally. Call back to bias. So I'm going to make not Tobias, like Arrested Development. So I'm just going to make a note to myself. Call back to bias again here. I blew myself. So I'm gonna look at that. Like, that is a section, like, this is good. This just needs some like cleanup and structure because it's kind of hard to look at. But like, in terms of the level of detail, I feel pretty good about this. I am not writing directly in WordPress, Seth. I'm writing in ConvertKit, which I generally don't do. I generally would write this in a Google Doc or something that's live saving, but I'm feeling dangerous. Actually, the truth is, now that I've said that out loud, I'm gonna move it into a Google Doc. The last thing I want to do is lose it. So thank you for calling me out on that. Good call. Good looking out for me, team. I appreciate you. Yeah, everybody has lost work. I guess the good news is the work would be recorded, so I could like go through and retype it, but oh, I'd be so mad about it. So, okay, cool. Getting text out of Google Docs and into ConvertKit is its own nightmare, but I can deal with that later. So, go back to bias again here. Let's get this out of print mode. I think there's a need for a header here. That's the other thing, is that comment doesn't have any structure in headers. I think that's one of the things that's really going to kind of glue this together. So, yeah, I don't like software in particular. ConvertKit runs our entire business. It's the only email tool I've used that has been consistently reliable and has the stuff that we need it to do. So that's all I really need to say about that. So I'm thinking, sort of going back here, is like, to overcome bias, we need a fix. Okay. Need a systematic approach. Zorn, yes. Save as you go. Seriously, yeah. Save as you go, or at the very least, like, save it locally. But yeah, nothing worse than losing all your stuff. And ConvertKit like seems like it's saving. What happens? And this is the thing to be on the lookout for, Zorn, is, and I've run into this with ConvertKit because it is saving periodically, is if I just so happen to like the session expires or whatever, and it stops communicating with the server, it doesn't tell me that, and so it looks like I'm saving until I accidentally refresh or something, and then everything is gone. Total nightmare. So Skyforest, thank you for the thumbs up on the channel music. This is oh, my video froze again, so I'm turning that off. It was good while it lasted. The music is from Harris Heller. This is his one of his copyright free music playlists for streaming, and it's good vibes. Some of the tracks I've got going are a little more upbeat and exciting, so that's fun. So, all right, so this is important. I'm adding in some structure here. So this whole thing is kind of, like I said, setting up about bias, and then that's a lead into the next section. To overcome bias, you need a systematic approach. Ta-da, we've got one of those. So we introduce that at a high level, and then we say, what is a product, really? I don't like that title, but I'm writing something down because I'll hate it enough to go back and fix it. So, the point of this section here, so it says products or fixes aren't just a SaaS or an ebook or a course or a product-type service. Products are a combination of two things. The kind, or as we call the method, of help that you provide. For example, education, automation, outsourcing, etc. And a format for the delivery. Each method includes dozens of potential formats. For example, education alone can include articles, books, podcasts, video courses, live instruction, pre-recorded lessons, memorable illustrations to explain metaphors, exercises, practice. That's just off the top of my head, and it literally was off the top of my head for one of about a dozen methods. In 30 by 500, we provide starter lists for methods and formats, and examples and practice to go along with every piece of the system. So this is where it being in the context of a 30 by 500 launch actually really starts getting interesting, because I can start talking about how and what we offer in the course while still telling the person what the system is, so that if they want to, they could go and try this on their own. And really that's the goal, is like, you could try a version of this on your own. It's not going to be as detailed or as complete because you don't have all of the observation and repetition that we have of going through this or teaching people how to go through this. But you could, my goal with this email is that you could absolutely apply this without signing up, right? Or you could try it and be like, wow, this is really good, but I'm clearly missing some pieces, right? And not like, I gave you 9 steps, but in order to get the 10th magic step where it all comes together, like, none of that. That's bullshit. That's scammy. Connie, that's not it. No, I want you to be able to do it and see that it works, even if it's not the best version or the whole version. You got to feel a win in order for us to earn the trust, right? So in class, we provide starter list, In practice, you take each pane and run it through every permutation of method times format. Figure out a way to describe that better, that you can. Not everything that comes out will be good. Not everything that comes out will be fun or interesting or even possible. Not everything that comes out will be something that your audience even wants. So I think in the comment I had broken these into separate lines. Cool. But now you have an essentially endless list of options you can start whittling down to the ones that are good, the ones that sit in the Venn diagram of your audience's desires and buying habits and your personal strengths. And so that's really the concept of pain storming at a high level, right? It's identifying a pain, figuring out where the person would want to get without that pain, and then using this sort of combinatory and like, it's basically like remix, right? It's like going through every permutation. And if that sounds like it's slow or overwhelming because it's going to generate a ton of ideas, both of those things are true. Hey, what's up? What's up, new followers? Glad you're here. Thank you. So yeah, the alternatives to this are, you've got the first few ideas that came off the top of your head, one that you're going to feel really excited about, but that's not a direct correlation to the one that is necessarily best for the overlap of what your audience wants and buys and what you actually have the ability to create now with your own skills and resources. What's the thing that you can get in the hands of a customer fastest? So I'll talk about that a little bit in the next sentence. It gets rid of the preciousness of your ideas because you never have to worry about something being your last or only idea. This is something that always I find fascinating with creative folks is, they latch onto an idea, and when you interrogate, why they do a thing or don't do a thing that comes up often is like, I'm worried this will be my only good one or my last good one. And I think that just like really, really highlights the danger of ideas, where, if you get attached to them, even though all of the evidence is pointing you in a different direction. And so you never interrogate the evidence and instead get attached to the idea. You end up in a really wacky spot. And by wacky, I mean terrible. You can always come up with more ideas as long as you've done the audience research and used the process. Hope that gives you a taste of what we mean by systematic and why availability bias is such a tempting but limiting factor without a process like this. Okay, so there is a transition in here that I think is somewhere around here. And what I might do is right? That's it. So, and here's what's cool is we still need, like, there definitely needs to be a conclusion of some kind. But now we have sort of an arc where if I'm just skimming, to overcome bias, you need a systematic approach. What is a product really? And the result. Yeah, okay. This middle one, I already said I didn't like this. So, like, I would like this one to be something that, again, if all you were reading were these H2s, 1, 2, 3, there'd be kind of a story arc. So it's sort of like, to overcome bias, you need a systematic approach. Let's see. Dave said is systematically come up with product ideas. Yeah. Cool. So, haha. If we remember, what was the sentence that she latched onto? A repeatable process for coming up with concepts for ways to solve the problem, or enter ideas. So I'm going to take that back to here, a repeatable system for product ideas, right? Because people, 30 by 500 does a great job of removing the idea of ideas from your workflow. At this phase, people are still into ideas, right? Which is not bad. So, it's a fundamental mistake. Has brainstorming, which is bad. All right. Now that I know where I'm going to end, maybe my beginning makes a little more sense. Yeah. All right. If you were following along, I just wrote a bunch of new stuff. But the new stuff is really just updates to the other stuff and is meant to, as I said, punch things up, give things, I only have a couple of sentences to get somebody in. And so talking about, I have a couple different ways I can do it. I can talk about the problem of product ideas. But by the time somebody is already sort of enrolled in the idea of what 30 by 500 is, I don't need to do that as much. But what I can do is, like I said, I want to really focus on this idea of biases being sort of at the heart of the problem. And you can't undo biases, but you can build systems that are smarter to help us avoid the biases taking over, right? So I can get rid of that and that and that. It's the availability bias. That means you're most likely to think up product ideas that are like the ones that you've already seen. Yeah, there we go. Cool. See, I'm like filling in gaps and rearranging stuff still. So, everything. Cool. This is something you'll see in a lot of our emails. And this is a thing that I learned from editing a lot of Amy's emails and articles and essays, is that there's this pattern where if I can introduce something that the audience is very likely to be interested in, or that will make them curious in some way, then what I'm effectively doing is, even if that thing is not directly tied to the thing that I'm going to talk about, it creates this sort of like tension momentum that is basically, wait, I thought you were going to talk about X. Now you're talking about Y. Why is that? And that tension of, are these things connected? Especially when people have seen us sort of do this trick before, whether they've consciously noticed it or not. We introduce a thing that is related, but in an unobvious way. We make them go, wait, I thought you were going to talk about X, but you're talking about Y. And then we show them X is Y, or Y is X. Einhorn is Finkel, Finkel is Einhorn, that sort of thing. So I'm going to do that here. This is obviously not in the original writing, but I sort of saw the opportunity to introduce something that is not really what the email is about, and at the same time is exactly what the email is about. So I'm gonna play with that and see where that goes. So and then this part is totally new right here, because I think people, especially in this community, are super sensitive to being totally original or feeling totally original, and that's for a whole other email, but I can sort of point to the problem, and people have a lot of sensitivity to copycats being creators. Yes, the Captain America reference. So there's layers to that one. There's I get the reference to you getting that reference. I love that, Zorn. So cool. And now I was able to really reinforce that all different kinds of products are subject to this problem. The more you see it, the more likely it's the more likely it is to be the first thing that comes up in your mind when you're brainstorming your next product. That's also why product ideas seem to come in waves through communities like Indie Hackers, Product Hunt, Hacker News, or whatever. Not because people are copying each other on purpose. It's at work. Worse, we're going to, but worst of all, creators, people with creative skills have a tendency to bias towards product ideas that we think are the coolest, will be the most exciting or fun to create, or even this one's redundant. On top of that, people with creative skills have a tendency to bias towards product ideas that we think are the coolest and most fun and exciting to create. Between these two forces, we Cool. So now we're back to the problem that they perceive, which is, how do I come up with a good idea with an idea that people will actually pay for? Right. Because that's the thing. It's not about coming up with ideas. That's not hard. Some people struggle with that, and obviously our fixed storming process is good for that too. But the key here is like, these are ideas that people want and will pay for. That's at the heart of what comes out of Sales Safari. So to overcome bias and succeed, you need a systematic approach. That is a very clumsy sentence. So if people have a suggestion for ways to improve that, I'd love to hear it. Our on this system, something we call fixed storming. Fixed storming is another foundation skill Dave, You know I love an M dash. You learned that. Did you learn that from Amy? No, I love an M dash, and actually, this is a really good use of an M dash. So, well dead. Different kind of compliment. So a decision I have to make in here is like, how much do I describe or explain brainstorming? I'm leaning towards less. Folks know Sales Safari, so I think I'm just gonna leave it at that, because the more I'm explaining I'm not gonna actually teach it in this email. It's just kind of creating tension that I'm not gonna get to relieve here. So that kind of sucks. Fixed storming is common to the foundations of Sales Safari that you will learn in 30 by 500. And one of the most powerful processes in the entire class. So yeah, I'm going to focus on describing what fixed storming is and why it fits into their world, why they would want to learn how to do it, before I give you sort of the super duper intro of how it works. So fixed storming basically says brainstorming is random. Brainstorming, while creative and fun, is random, is subject to random whims and laden with your biases. And again, those biases aren't inherently good or bad. They're just limiting. Ooh, this was the line that I loved, right? So, laden with your whims and biases. And more importantly, brainstorming sends you into your brain instead of your brain. Wow, I can type. But into your brain instead of into your research. I really want to use emojis here. That's the juxtaposition. It's like, whose brain do you want to be inside of? Yours or your customers? That's another Amy Hoy style emphasis. How are we feeling about this, gang? I know I'm a little quiet because I'm thinking, and thinking and writing are hard. How are we feeling about the way this reads? Is it making sense? Are my explanations making sense? Are you learning things? Are you still here? Hello. Again, your biases aren't inherently good or bad, but they do exist, and they are limiting factors in your ability to get rid of that. Mom just called. How's Mom, Luke? Alright. This feels like a good break for me to do fix storming step by step, right? At a high level, fix storming looks like this. Pick a very specific pane. Da, 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 da. In 30 by 500, we spend several lessons and exercise. You'll spend a lot of time going through detailed. No, that's not good. People don't want to spend time. You'll get to explore the fix storming process in detail. With lessons, hands-on exercises, practice exercises, and guided steps for end examples. A real student research and all that is true. Once you're in 3,100, you'll get to explore. But for today, at a high level. So again, my goal here is not a hard sell on 30 by 500. I actually want people to be able to walk away from this email with the ability to understand and maybe even do a baby version of this. But that doesn't take away from the fact that we are in a launch, so reminding people that like this is a piece of a bigger thing. You can sign up for that thing. If you like this, there's way more where that came from. So that's what this sentence here is doing. And I feel really good about fix storming step by step. That's a goodie. So, but for today, at a high level, fix storming looks like this. 1, you pick one very specific pain that you found specific and expensive pain that you found your audience about. Again, I'm going to remove the extra references to painstorming because people are going to be like, what is painstorming? And I haven't explained that in here. So unless absolutely necessary, I'm going to remove that. I'm glad Mom is great. Had a socially distanced weekend. Oh, very, very nice. I'm getting you hung out in the burbs, I presume. It was a really nice weekend. Weather was gorgeous. Okay. Step 1. Step 2. This is one where I gotta ride the line between jargon, like reversing the pain, which is what we describe in the class, and dream, which is the thing that we describe in the class. I think I'm going to try and erase unnecessary jargon, because fixed storming is already... I'm seeing a place where I misspelled fixed storming. Fixed storming. Fixed storming. Fancy jargon, like... Not their jargon, but our jargon, I want to try and keep to a minimum unless it is for a very specific use. So ask yourself, what does life look like for your customer once that pain is gone or significantly reduced? Keep in mind, sometimes this answer is easy and obvious, but many times it's not as straightforward as the first answer that comes to mind. You might need to get more clear about the problem or why the problem exists in the first place. I might add an example here. No, that's gonna be clumsy. I'll come up with an example later. Alright, and step 3. Could again, trying to edit out unnecessary 30 by 500 jargon is the real key here. Without, you'll There's my call back to the bias again. Mission accomplished. So, let's revisit this. Once you're in 30 by 500, you'll get to explore the fixed drawing process the entire. Good night, Zorn. Thanks for hanging out. I will likely see you around Indie Hall Parts tomorrow. Have a good one. Alright, so you get to explore the entire fixed drawing process in detail with lessons, hands-on, practice, and exercises and examples based on real student successes. But for today, at a high level, fixed drawing looks like this. Step 1. Pick a very specific and expensive pain that you found your audience experiences. If you haven't found this via research, Cool. I feel real good about this. So it's not. Repeatable system for infinite product ideas. That is language that we use in the sales page, so it is shared elsewhere, and obviously infinite is not literal. I don't believe anybody actually believes that it is infinite, although to a degree it is infinite, because if all you need to do to continue it to infinity is go find another pane. But the idea is here is, like, again, erasing that preciousness and stuff like that. In fact, no, I'm gonna leave that where it is. So we'll call it product ideas. So this is an opportunity to call back to the subject that I had written, right? Which was, is 30 by 500 aimed at building any particular type of business? So I'm going to grab that. So what I'm doing here is I'm giving a little bit of context by way of showing people that if this is a question they have, they're not alone. And if this isn't a question that they have, that's okay too. We're not going to lose them here, because now that we've shown them the question, they go, oh yeah, that is actually a question that I might have. So So I'm resisting some temptation to lecture here. Is if you're seeing me write things and erase them. My temptation here is to lecture about the fact that a business is not tied to a specific product or product format. And I might just say that explicitly and leave it at that. So like, over the lifetime of a business, your success is likely to depend on many different kinds and formats of products. We teach the processes we teach. In our processes. I'm turning off my video again because it keeps freezing. I can't wait to fix that. That's so frustrating. In our processes now. Good question about through line. So, not necessarily. When I say the through line is your audience and the problems they have, the through line here is, what is the thing that every product you sell will have in common? What is the thing that ties your whole business together? Products are sort of points along the line. The line itself is your audience, right? In every single product, if there is no audience, there is no sale, right? In every single product, if there is no problem that audience feels or experiences, there is no sale. So your audience and their problems exist in every single product that you create, regardless of the format or method. Does that make sense? The through line of your business is your audience and the problems they have. SaaS or ebook or course or product as a service. Products are a combination of two things. The method of it, the format, delivery. Back with the M dashes, Dave, if you're still here. Very nice. So for those of you who are still sticking around, I'm giving myself another like 10 or 15 minutes, and I'm going to call it a night, because otherwise I'm never going to be able to fall asleep, and my brain will be going. And we've been at this for an hour and 45 minutes, which is plenty of time. So I feel good about where we got, and I can finish this up tomorrow. But we are getting very, very close. I see I'm doing a little bit of formatting work as I'm getting through here. I'm also cautious about doing too much formatting work because I'm going to have to reformat everything to get it into ConvertKit, which is a pain in my butt. What is that emote? It's a happy taco. Very nice. Somebody's going to have to teach me how to do emotes. So inside 3500, you get access to starter lists of methods and formats, along with I gotta get to affiliate. I gotta look at what that takes. We'll get there. We'll see. I just gotta be streaming more than once every 10 days. Nick's Mad Science has been good about being on me, but hey, you gonna stream again? I was on vacation, so nowhere near the stream machine, and then last week was kind of crazy, but it's good to be back, and I think I'm gonna do at least one more stream in the middle of this week, so hopefully I'll come back for that. If you have not followed here on Twitch to get a notification when I go live next, it'd be awesome if you did that now. So inside 30 by 500, you get, and so if you caught what I was doing there, one of the other things I've been doing along the way, again, when I'm in a rush, I'm writing about the product and the things that we're going to give you and the things that, you know, we created and and wherever I can, I'm looking for ways to reframe that to make it about them, right? So before this was, you know, 30 by 500 gives you so it's more like inside 30 by 500 you get access to, you will be able to, so you get access to starter lists of methods and formats along with examples and practice for implementing every piece of this system. This is out of order. Let's see here. In practice, to come up with infinite product ideas. That was the line, right? Yep. Infinite product ideas. We should trademark that. That should be the name of 30 by 500. Infinite product ideas. You come up with as many permutations of method and format as you can. This is a clumsy sentence. This is going to take some work. So get ready to watch me rewrite the same sentence 15 times. To come up with infinite product ideas, fix storming will take, tells you to combine I mean, we use the word combinatory, which I'm not even sure. Wow, I spelled that terribly. It's the right word, but it's like, it's a mouthful. The list of methods with a list of formats to invent as many permutations as you can to solve your audience's problem and help them achieve their goal. It's long, but I think it's clear. What do y'all think? How could I make that clearer? Tells you to combine this list of methods with list of formats. It's a long ass sentence. I might have to edit that one in the morning because I'm getting tired. The result, a lot of potential products you could create. It might sound like if you're thinking that sounds slow or that selection sounds overwhelming. Oops. Not everything that comes out will be good. Not everything that comes out will be fun, or interesting, or even possible. Not everything that comes out will be something that your audience wants. This looks like another header I accidentally wrote. How do you know which ideas are good to pursue? All else being equal, any of these ideas have a better shot than plucking something at random out of thin air because you derived them from actual audience problems and goals. When it comes to picking one at a time, right? So options down. So what I'm doing here is I'm working towards a conclusion that is about confidence in decision making, because that's really kind of at the heart of 30 by 500. Is not that, you know, we make you a wizard who's able to wave a magic wand and make people buy the stuff that you create. That's the other way around. It's we give you the confidence to through a different method of figuring out what to create, that the thing you create has a very high likelihood of being purchased. So that's the sort of destination that I'm working these last few sentences to. Down to the options. This is key. People really struggle with validation. Validation broke our whole industry of creators. I'm gonna save this one later. I don't know. It's really good. I think I'm tired is what's happening here. We're past 2 hours. I think I'm going to call this a night. This clearly, like, this is at 90%. I think I can wrap this up in like 20 or 30 minutes. with fresh night of sleep ahead of me. But this is so much better than it was. I mean, think about how far we've come from, this comment, and not just more words, but like better structure and, before we had no headlines, now we've got headlines. Yeah, I feel like we made big progress here, gang. Bringing my camera back for just a couple minutes as we wrap things up. Well, there are a handful of you that are still here. Thanks for hanging out. I'm curious if anybody, before I wrap up, has questions. Or, did I breeze past something that made you go, wait, what did you do there? Or something that's unclear about a decision that I made. I would love to answer questions if anybody's got them. Yeah, Dave, thanks. I think this is good. This is good. And so this is going to go, again, this email is going to go out on Thursday. So I've got a few days to sort this out. Everything else in this launch is going to be, slight tweaks. I've got a few new case study examples. I've got one that's really cool from a student who he had some moderate success with his products, but had big success with bringing these skills to an employer, which is something that we don't talk about a lot. And it's not like the biggest, this launch doesn't have a super duper clear through line like some of them have. And maybe it will by the time I'm done, but basically after Thursday, we've got, Friday is one about, actually, I mean, it is pretty in line with the bias email. I don't know. I might end up this. I mean, this is looking like it's going to be in terms of a launch, we've never launched with this specific set. So it's kind of a remix. This is like our 8th or 9th remix launch. And on a couple of themes that we haven't really done before. Luke, you asked motivations for removing 30 by 500 jargon, specifically the pain dream language. So my thought process there is jargon is a really useful tool. There's kind of two kinds. There's the audience jargon, and there's the sort of technical internal jargon that we created. The technical internal jargon is really great for communicating once people are already in the process and sharing the process. But if you're not already in the process, it's actually kind of alienating. I think, if at the very least it's confusing. So what I wanted to do is describe what the pain and the dream represent, and instead of having to lean on our jargon, because our jargon is basically a shortcut. I mean, things like e-bomb, and e-bomb is a piece of educational marketing content or tool, but that's a mouthful, so we call it an e-bomb. And there's a little bit of once you know the jargon and you hear the jargon, you're like, I know that jargon, and it feels like you're a part of it. But in this particular setting, introducing too much jargon and in the wrong way, I think does the opposite, where it actually makes somebody feel on the outside of a group, which is the absolute opposite of what we want, and kind of undoes all of the work that we've been trying to do. So hopefully that answers that question. It's a good question though. Any other questions? What could I do to make this experience different or better too? Because I'm still obviously learning the streaming. The video thing, we'll sort out the technical stuff, but not a question, but the advice to choose a specific and expensive pain gave me a light bulb moment. Ooh, okay. What's that, Dave? I want to hear more about that. Super interested in what, because sometimes when I'm a lot of this stuff, especially when I'm I was able to write the first version of that comment because I've written most of those things before in bits and pieces, right? Just never sort of polished them out. Okay, the expensive part in particular. Are you feeling like that would help you narrow the pains or the problems that you're choosing in a way that wasn't obvious before, Dave? I'm curious. That expensive problem language is not ours. That is something from out in the world of marketing and customer research for sure. It's something that I think we can and should use more. Earlier you talked about earning, a phrase that struck me, and interested to hear more about what you're earning. Okay, so when I say I'm earning a phrase or earning the ability to say something, what I mean there is, I guess it kind of depends on the context. So when I was talking about it before, if I want to sort of poke the audience a little bit, which we do from time to time, if I'm poking the reader to be like, hey, I'm talking about a problem, but I'm talking about you. If you haven't earned the trust to do that, it feels shitty, right? So there's a line that I feel like we've got to walk, and it doesn't work for everybody. There's people that don't like our style, and that's okay. But I think in order to jab and for people to know that it's coming from a place of love, you've got to over deliver on the part that's not jabbing them, right? Don't come out and sock them in the jaw. You gotta kind of give them a bear hug first. So that it's sort of like, I think about it, it's sort of like, when you can sort of razz your friends, right? And then you're like, we're friends because I'm razzing you. It's kind of like that. I don't do this with everybody. I only do it with somebody who's kind of come along for the journey. So there's that. I think there's other times where it's not so much about razzing the audience, because that's really not the point of any of this writing. But in order to, so when we talk about making a sale, right? Making a sale is all about sort of building up momentum and tension and then creating an opportunity for release, right? That's what gets somebody to take action. Can't make somebody take action they weren't going to take, but if they have the desire to ever take action, you can help make that happen by creating that tension and release. And so when I say earning a phrase, sometimes it's that, but for an idea, right? And so there's this learning concept that we have really kind of changed the game for 30 by 500 overall. We used to do a lot of like very philosophical top-down teaching, and people liked it, but they didn't do anything with it. And more importantly, they were afraid to use it. And so this idea that I'm pretty sure we got, this idea was one of many we got from Kathy Sierra. It was the idea of in order to create the spark of knowledge, you need to create the gap. Right? And so if you think about a spark plug, if those metal contacts are touching, then if the metal contacts are touching, then there's no spark, right? And if the metal contacts are too far apart, there's also no spark. So the key is the distance needs to be just right in order to create the spark. I was making hand gestures and I was not on camera, and I realized that. So got my camera fixed up for a minute. So again, spark plug. If the metal is touching, there's no spark. If the metal's too far apart, there's also no spark. But if you get just the right distance, the spark lights, right? And so I think there's a similar thing in writing, where if your goal is to create a moment of understanding or realization, you need to create that gap. And sometimes that gap is tension. Sometimes that gap is, showing two things that are different from each other. And somebody goes, you know what, those are different from each other. I also think about, like, in comedy writing, the theory of, what is it? It's benign. It's not benign wrongness or something like that. But like, a lot of comedy is like showing something that is wrong in the right way or right in the wrong way. And I'll have to look up, maybe we'll talk about this on another stream when it's not 10:30 or 10:40 at night. But that gap, again, is where brain stuff happens. And so that's kind of what I talk about when I'm saying earning a thing. It's a combination. In some cases, it's about earning trust. In some cases, it's about earning the space for the person to have an aha moment or to take a leap intellectually to absorb an idea. So hopefully that's helpful, Luke. And Dave, yeah, the lens of what people would buy, what would make good money. Yeah, you can solve all kinds of problems, and it's not about a problem being big or small. It's and then maybe it's a different way of framing is like, how painful is it? Is it painful enough to feel expensive, right? Where it could be a small problem that I feel every single day. That is expensive, right? Or can it feel expensive? Or it can be a big problem that is a blocker. That's another kind of expensive. Expensive can mean a lot of things, but yeah, I'm glad that comes across as a lens for measuring what is a pain. Like, how do I rank pain? So yeah, in the pain ranking system, we talk a little bit about that as one of the factors, and I'm glad that's a light bulb for you now. I think that's it. I'm pretty beat. And this was fun. We'll keep doing this, and I will fix my camera situation. I'm so mad about that. Thanks for hanging out, gang. I hope you have a great night. Hope you have a great week. And I'll see you back on the stream at some point soon. Cheers.